think that's okay. Sorry if I'm a little crooked. I am like arguing a lot with the tripod this morning. But hi, welcome to a Bible study. Today we're going to be taking a look at Genesis chapter 1. Instead of posting the replay from the Zoom that should have happened on Friday, I'm going to make videos for chapters 1 through 3, and I'm doing them individually because chapters 1 through 3 are mammoths. But I'm sorry for all the chaos behind me. I try to like adjust it so that it's, but there's no, just don't look at it. You'll know that we're moving. Just don't look at it. If you haven't already watched the intro video, I encourage you to go do that now. That was supposed to be homework before we did the Zoom. So go back and watch that first, because that's like kind of background info on the book as a whole. And I may reference that video through the rest of the book of Genesis, and then you'll be potentially missing information because I won't really go back into what I said again. So go back and watch that and then come here. So intro, then 1, 2, 3. I'll wait. So some of you may know, some of you may not know, this is something that kind of circulates on like Christian social media circles every once in a while, but in the beginning is the name of the book. So like Genesis, the Hebrew is Bereshit, I think is how it's pronounced, which just means in the beginning. So this book as a whole will chronicle the beginning. We will be looking at primeval history and then like early ancient Mesopotamian culture is kind of where we're plucking the forefathers out of by and large. So let's start verse by verse, breaking it down. I'm not going to read this to you as I go. I'm just going to give you notes as I go down, sort of like a college class would, instead of kind of how we've been doing it. So if you are used to being read to and now I'm not reading to you and you don't know what to do, I'm so sorry. If you did not already read it, please pause here and read it and then come back. In the beginning is how, again, the book opens. This is not the beginning of time, and I know that some of you are like, well, duh, but I cannot stress this enough. We are not talking about the beginning of God. The beginning of, maybe I should say it's not, it is the beginning of time. It's the beginning of our time. It's the beginning of our world, our universe. This isn't, like, God stands outside of time, and so therefore we're not creating an origin story of God. We're creating an origin story of us and our universe. But this, I will say, like, doesn't even have to be the beginning of everything ever. This is simply a creation account in relation to humans on Earth. Now, do not take Genesis and wield it to say, oh, well, there's definitely aliens, or, oh, there's this, that, and the other. That's not the point either. Remember, the Bible should always be a worshipful practice. So if you are reading Genesis, reading Revelation, and you are not in worship as you are reading, it does not point you to Christ. It does not point you to truths of God. Start over. So, in the beginning, So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This verse is an introductory statement that sums up God's great work in history. It is balanced, I think is the language they used, is balanced by the summary completion statement of chapter 2, verse 1. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. Okay, let's talk about without form and void. So this phrase is the Hebrew tohu wabohu, which is quickly becoming one of my favorite things to say. That's such a fun thing. It is spelled exactly how you think it is, tohu wabohu. Very hooked on phonics because the Hebrew language isn't in like our alphabet. So anytime that you're like, how do you spell Hebrew word? Just sound it out. So tohu wabohu, this is Strong's 8414 and 922 if you wanted to look them up. Strong's Hebrew if you want to look them up. But this phrase is found again in Jeremiah chapter 4 to describe exiled Israel. Tohu often refers to wilderness wasteland. Think like Deuteronomy 32. The reference here is thus likely a wilderness that is unsuitable for life, yet transformed into a perfect environment. All right, verse 3, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. Now, we need to pause for a second. There are two things that you need to know, but the first is I'm going to ask you a question, and I know you can't answer me, but I'm going to pause. Why create light? Why create light? For his creatures. God is light, yes, but he creates independent light in his sovereignty and then rules the world by serving. All of the universe answers to him, and he sends out the universe for the benefit of his creation. Jesus did not start the process of ruling by serving in the 30s AD. God has always ruled by serving. And we'll see this again with the fall. The other thing is that the light that is created then distinguishes the light from the dark, thus creating day and night. And so then later the sun and the moon and stars are created to have a habitat in those areas. So don't look at the bottom because this was a different thing that was happening and I can't get it to erase. But light and dark are created, and then on day 4, the thing that this is the habitat is created. Day 2, we have an expanse in the midst of the waters, separating the waters from the waters. And he calls the expanse heaven. But this means that there's water now and sky, right? Like there's not, think of the earth as being like a big wet ball right now. So there's waters and there's sky. There's not dry land. But day 5 is when birds and like fish, sea creatures are created. And then day 3, we have what? The waters gathered into one place so that dry land can appear, and then vegetation sprouts, right? The 6th day, the stuff that needs dry land and vegetation. Livestock, reptiles, creeping things, beasts of the earth, people. So it is a parallel pattern where light and darkness happen, sun, moon, and stars happen. Water happens, water happens. Dry land happens, dry things happen. Notice also that there's a pattern of 1, 1, 2, 1, because it's everything like in the sky. There's not like this happens and this happens. This all happens at once. So 1, 1, 2, because livestock, creeping things, beasts, and then man happen. So for the last couple of notes, one, I'm going to tell you that everything was very good. That is the last proclamation of chapter 1, is that everything is very good and that the 6th day happened. And then we go into the 7th day for chapter 2. The original inhabitants of the world lack for nothing. Everything is abundant, everything is fruitful, everything is good. Everything is in the immediate presence of the Lord. And nothing is like sick from the fallen world. No one and nothing lacks for anything. And that is the state that chapter 1 ends on. But I just want you to notice verse 27. So up until this point, it has been a patterned narrative. So there's like a general structure to the creation narrative, which is that there is an announcement. And so, and God said, and God said, and God said. And then what he said, so a commandment. He says, let there be light, let there be an expanse, let there be waters, so on and so forth. And then there's a report that says, and there was. He says there was light, and so there was light. He says, let the waters, and so the waters went where he told them to. He says, let there be sea creatures, and there are sea creatures. He says, let there be birds, there are birds. And then there's a naming. So God calls things, right? And this isn't like a calling forth, but a naming, right? That's what that word means here. And to name something is to show dominion over it. So God calls the like the night and the day, and he calls it heaven, and he you know, all the stuff like there's a dominion aspect to it, which is important because he doesn't name any of the creatures other than Adam. Actually, you know, I got to the end of all that and it cut me off. Okay, so where did I get to? The naming, which is dominion. An evaluation, God says it's good, right? Over and over again he says it's good. And then a temporal framework. So there's evening and there's morning. But verse 27 is a poem. So we've had this structure, so to speak, go on and on. It's a narrative form. And then 27, which it's kind of hard to see in the English, but it's also in a lot of translations like separated and you can see it. And there's like very clear repetition here. So you can kind of tell it's a poem. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. I want you to notice and sort of lock away in the back of your mind that upon God seeing man, so to speak, he breaks into poem. He breaks into poetry. The other thing of note is that male and female are distinctly created. This passage shows that gender is an essential feature of God's design, not a social construct. Don't shoot the messenger. Okay, I'll see you soon.